Well, do you use a lot of transition games?
Well, yeah, like transitions is huge for us because of we were in the 1-3-1. They think so. The way they would teach it was initially like is a defending system to stop really fast skating teams. But like when our LA guys came down, they tell us like no, like this is a transition based system. It's built to like stall out the speed, but also allow us to get on the attack. Because essentially, instead of the 1-1-3 where you have the stack on the blue line, we have the stack on the red line, and so now you have four guys that can attack right off the rush. And so trying to get that taught to our guys, so their guys got a little too passive. And so once we were able to teach them, like, hey, you can attack off of this, like you can create a ton more offense. And so we saw like, okay, we can use transitions more often here and try to, again, really try to get that going with our group.
So what I'm asking though is, do you
Mason,
use?
Tom, let me give an explanation to Mason. You're talking about the neutral zone transition. You're trying to create a turnover. Over the many years, we've talked about transition in all zones.
Yeah.
In other words, you transition off the forecheck. You have transition off the breakout. You have transition in the neutral zone. And depending on what you choose to do and where you choose to focus, to me, as sort of the art of coaching is, are you a team that's a transition team for the length of the ice from the neutral zone? So our focus on transition is that moment of a turnover, where whatever zone it is, and whether it's the 1-3-1 system you use to try to create it, or a 1-4, do it at the blue line by pinching and trying to create a turnover. That's where we're from. Tom has more transition games on his website that he uses over many years, and had worked with the best European coaches on this concept. So you go ahead and Tom, you're just to extend your thought process for Mason's sake, and I'm sure interested, Mason, in the videos of what you got, but I think you appreciate where we all come from on this transition topic. If the NHL, I'm curious about your take on the playoffs and where they're capitalizing on transition. And but go ahead, Tom. Just continue.
Well, what I do, I go watch practices, and I've been doing it for 20 years. And I take little videos and break them down and all this. But I've gone to Finland many times, and Erkka Westerlund came to Calgary once for Hockey Canada and did a lot of stuff about transition games. So there's no whistles. The players come in and out. You can create whatever situation you want. But what happens is when the puck goes in the corner, it doesn't end. You got to get the puck, make a breakout play, and go the other way. And I don't see very many pro teams do this. Babcock used a lot of them. And the odd time I see some, but it's not a real common thing in the North American pro. So that's what I was asking. Do you use transition games to work on the transition?
I would say early on we did. And then as the year went on, with like our very limited practice schedule and time, we started leaning toward, like we would lean towards fixing the deficiencies in the 1-3-1, or fixing our breakout, or fixing or trying to reestablish our ozone principles. And that's kind of the challenge. I'd love to play more games. The other problem is when you get with some of these older guys, keeping them motivated can be a little bit challenging, I'd say, at times. They want, especially with the fatigue and how tough the schedule can be. So trying to pocket in the games can be challenging at times. But I completely agree with you. Like when I played, I loved it. I'm like, let's play more games. And so from a transition standpoint, game-wise, we'd usually use the the 4-on-2 one where they're transitioning back and forth, where the net's on two, like you just move the net. You have two nets inside one zone. I'm sure you all have done it already, but it's like a little power play game. But you cut the end zone in half, and then they just play back and forth, and they're just trying to work off each other.
I saw a team doing that last night when I was going to play hockey.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
On my site yesterday too.
Yeah, no, and it's a good one.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about you create the situation, and the players they flow into the. So you can do your 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, whatever you want to do, and using these games instead of whistles and really structured things. I think practices tend to be way too structured, and they're not very game-like. Like you tell everybody what they got to do, and they do it, and the situation, they know the situation. There's no changing in the situation, kind of thing. So,
what's your website? I love to check it out. Yes, things are way too structured for sure. They really are, and it's. I thought like when I was gonna get into coaching, it'd be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's overhaul it. It's tough, and until like a head coach, I think it's a tricky position, especially when you have like there's ways that have worked, and so I really do think though like that's where the game should transition to, is where it's no whistles, because like in a game there's not like all this like I actually worked with a coach last year on the men's side, and he talked about like eliminating like doing drills where there was no whistle and the players were just reading off of each other to allow them just to like play in sync and flow and just transition normally like they would in a game.
Mason, that's exactly where we all come from relative to the way the game is going. I'm curious about you, where you're at, what you're doing at the level you're working at. And you said you had some clips.
Yeah.
I think that's your comfort zone of what you're working with. And we may ask questions pertaining to our frames of reference.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the youngest guy here. And that means the guy that's learning because you're doing it on the fly, and you're going to be changing many coaching jobs, which you have.
Oh, yeah.
And we've sort of been in and out of more coaching jobs than you've thought about yet. So if you can share your screen, Mason, we've just had Sammy Joe Small joined.